I've been driving for Uber Eats for a while now, mostly doing the late night shifts. Honestly, I actually prefer working at night. The roads are quiet, there's barely any traffic, and most deliveries are simple. Pick up the food, drop it off, snap a photo, and move on to the next order. But there's one delivery I still think about. One that was easily the strangest I've ever had. It was just after 1 a.m. when the order popped up on my phone. It was from a pretty normal restaurant, nothing weird. The address? A quiet residential neighborhood about 10 minutes away. I thought, easy enough, and accepted it. I drove to the restaurant, grabbed the bag of food, and headed toward the address. The place was almost empty, just a couple of employees cleaning up for the night. I set the bag on the passenger seat and started driving. The roads were nearly deserted. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, and the whole neighborhood had that eerie late-night silence where it feels like everyone else in the world is asleep. A few minutes later, I turned onto the street listed in the app and started scanning the house numbers. Eventually, I found it. A normal house. 2 stories, a small front yard, and a faint light coming from one of the windows. Nothing about it seemed strange. I parked, grabbed the food, and walked up to the front door. I knocked. A few seconds later, footsteps inside. The door opened, and a guy, maybe mid-30s, stood there. He looked tired, maybe a little confused. I held up the bag. "Uber Eats delivery?" He didn't take the food. Instead, he stared at the bag, then at me, and said, "I think you've got the wrong house." At first, I figured it was a simple mistake. Wrong address happens. "Is this house number 214? I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, but I didn't order any food." I pulled out my phone and opened the order details. The address on the app was clear. Definitely this house. I turned the screen toward him. "This is the address listed on the order." He stared at the phone for a moment, and then looked even more confused. "Hold on," he said, closing the door briefly. I stood there on the porch, holding the bag, wondering what the hell was going on. Wrong addresses happen, but something about the way he reacted just felt off. A minute later, the door opened again. "I just asked my wife. She didn't order anything either," he said. Now I was confused too. The order had already been paid for through the app, so someone had definitely placed it. Then he asked me something. "Can you see the name on the account that placed the order?" I looked. "Yeah, it's..." The moment I said it, his expression completely changed. He froze, like he was trying to process what he'd just heard. "Can you say that name again?" he asked quietly. I did. The color drained from his face. He stared at the phone, then back at me. "That's my brother's name," he finally said. "My brother. He died 2 years ago." For a few seconds, neither of us said a word. I didn't know what to say. Maybe it was just a coincidence, or some old account still active. But he didn't seem to be thinking that. "Just take the food and go, please," he said, shutting the door. I stood there for a moment, holding the bag, trying to make sense of what just happened. Eventually, I walked back to my car. I opened the app to figure out what to do next, and before I could even press anything, the order disappeared. Canceled. No message, no explanation, just gone. I sat there in my car, staring at my phone. To this day, I still have no idea what actually happened that night. Ever since that delivery, whenever I get a late-night order, I always double-check the customer's name before I accept it.
I had been doing late-night Uber Eats deliveries for a while, so I thought I'd seen it all. The quiet streets, the empty neighborhoods, the occasional sketchy address. It was all part of the job. But there's one delivery I'll never forget. The one that made me question everything about driving at night. It was around 2 a.m. when the order popped up. The restaurant was a little out of my usual route, on the edge of the city. I grabbed the bag, checked the address, and set off. At first, the drive seemed normal. Street lights flickering across empty roads, the occasional car passing by. But the further I went, the quieter it became. Too quiet. When I finally turned onto the street listed in the app, I noticed something immediately. The house I was supposed to deliver to looked completely abandoned. No lights, no cars, nothing that suggested anyone was home. Just a dark, empty house staring back at me under the dim glow of a street lamp. I slowed down, double-checked the address. Yep, that was it. I called the customer, my voice just a little shaky. "Hey, I'm at your house with the delivery." There was a brief pause, then a calm but quick voice responded. "Yes, I'm here. Just come to the door." I swallowed hard. "It looks really dark," I said, trying to sound casual. "No worries. The door's open," he said. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Something felt off. Too off. But I had a job to do, so I grabbed the bag and walked up to the door. Every step I took felt heavier. The silence was suffocating, almost unreal. There was no hum of electricity, no refrigerator running, not even the faint creak of a house settling. The place was dead. I reached the front porch and stopped, my hand hovering over the doorbell. Then my phone buzzed. A message from the customer appeared in the app. It read, "I can see you from the window." I froze. My eyes darted to every corner of the darkened house. No movement. No light. Just the empty silhouette of a house in the night. I don't even remember thinking. I turned and ran to my car, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I jumped in, locked the doors, and floored it down the street. Even after I was safely back on the main road, I couldn't shake the feeling. My hands were still trembling as I gripped the steering wheel, my eyes scanning every shadow in the rearview mirror. The next day, I told a friend who lived near that area about what had happened. I expected him to laugh, maybe tell me it was some kid playing a prank. But instead, he went pale. "That house?" he asked slowly. "Nobody's lived there in years." I couldn't believe it. All I could do was sit there and try to process it. Since that night, every time a late-night delivery pops up in a sketchy neighborhood, I double-check the address, sometimes even 3 times. And no matter how quiet the streets are, I always make sure someone is home before I go inside. Because that night taught me one thing: some houses are better left alone.
I had been working the late night shift as a security guard for a while. Most nights were boring, just walking a few empty hallways, checking doors, maybe logging a strange sound in my notebook and calling it a night. But there was one shift that stuck with me, one that still makes me tense up when I think about it. This particular night, I was posted at a massive old warehouse on the edge of town. The place was huge. Brick walls, metal doors, long dark aisles that never saw sunlight after 5 p.m. Most of the offices inside were old and barely used anymore, but the warehouse still stored crates and equipment that had been there for decades. Around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from my supervisor. "Hey man, a driver left some paperwork in the back office. Can you grab it? It's important." I replied, "Sure," and grabbed my flashlight before heading deeper into the warehouse. The farther I walked, the darker it got. My flashlight cut a thin, shaky beam across empty storage racks, spider webs, and dusty boxes. Everything felt strangely quiet, too quiet. like the building was holding its breath. When I reached the back office, the door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Inside, the faint glow of a standby machine lit the room. On the desk was a stack of printed papers. I recognized them as the ones the driver had left. I reached out to grab them, but something made me stop. I had the distinct feeling I wasn't alone. That's when I saw it. In the far corner of the room, just beyond the edge of the desk light, there was a figure. It was hunched over, shoulders trembling, like it was trying to stay warm in the cold room. I couldn't make out a face, just a dark silhouette. Then I heard breathing. Slow, uneven, like someone was gasping for air. My heart jumped into my throat. I stood frozen for what felt like eternity, staring at that shape. I couldn't tell if it was a man or something else. After what seemed like half a minute, I snapped out of it. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I backed out of the office as fast as I could, the papers forgotten on the desk. I bolted down the hallway and locked the office door behind me. I didn't look back. When I made it back to the main security station, my hands were shaking. I tried to tell the night shift guy who was coming in for his shift about what happened, but the words didn't come out right. All I could say was that I saw someone in that back office. He looked at me strangely for a moment, then asked one question that made my blood run cold. "Did you go into the back office alone?" I nodded. He didn't smile. He didn't laugh. He just said, "You know why I never go in there by myself, right?" I asked him what he meant. He told me that office had been empty for years. No one worked back there anymore. Not even storage crews. They stopped going in those aisles months ago because people reported hearing footsteps and breathing sounds when no one was supposed to be there. I didn't sleep well at all for days after that shift. Even now, whenever my phone buzzes in the middle of the night, I instinctively check over my shoulder, just in case something is watching from the dark. Because that night taught me one hard truth. Some places aren't just quiet. They're waiting.